Welcome to Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, the place for you to break free from the norm and celebrate your life, because what we believe in our hearts becomes our reality. This is Magical Moments with Alena Chapman.
Welcome to Magical Moments. I'm your host, Alena Chapman, and it is time for that ease and flow, everyone. I'm so excited. Hey, I have a little magical nugget for you. Today's show is actually about forgiveness. And everyone's going, ugh, forgiveness. But this is the thing. I want to bring up the importance about that. Because right now, you know what I do. I help people connect and live by their soul. Okay. And on top of that, I also help them to connect to the divine, God, source, whatever. I love to say my beloved, whatever floats your boat. But this is the thing. I find that when people haven't forgiven, the more baggage they carry on their shoulders, the harder it is for them to connect to their soul, the harder it is for them to connect and have a direct relationship with anything above what they have to forgive. Because forgiveness is like a giant weight around your heart. And it weighs on your shoulder. And sometimes we don't even realize the forgiveness part. And we're going to talk about that today. I really think in this show, it is important for us to really remain extremely open, even when we don't think we need to forgive. It's funny, we have our judgmental, righteous ways of being that we can't forgive anyone who thinks differently. We can't forgive anyone who acts differently. We can't forgive people who we think have hurt us. I'll tell you a funny story. I was talking, I forget who it was, but they were talking about, they were talking about how they saw this person that they hadn't seen for over 25 years. And this person was was a piano teacher. And when this guy who had known him, when little, his mother paid for all these piano lessons. And when he saw this guy, he just jokingly said, hey, we should start the piano lessons. He goes, no, you stole a tip from me 25 years ago. Now, think about this. The tip was what? Maybe $5 at the most, and especially 25 years ago. And the guy had a lot of money that he was paid to pay these piano lessons. But he's going to discount because he thinks that person took the tip. And actually the story was, the guy used to bus tables, and the person who was the waitress had given him the money. There was no stealing there. But yet this guy, this piano teacher, harbored that non-forgiving, judgmental attitude for all these years. Now, my friend turned to him and said, hey, you know what? I would never do that. That's not my personality. That's not what I do. But I'll tell you what, just let's call it even. You keep the piano lessons. I'll keep whatever it was that I got out, when I had that tip. And the funny thing is, the guy didn't see the injustice of how much more the piano lessons were than a little teeny weeny tip. Interesting. And he kept the deal. Isn't that something? So think about that in today's show. Think about, what are we doing? What are we holding on to so hard that we need to start? We need to open up and say, hey, wait, there's a higher road here. And boy, I'll tell you what, the freedom it gives you when you let go is amazing. So before I do the whole show on this, I want to bring on our guest, who is, I need to bring her on. She's a wonderful expert. I love this. Ianna Epps has over 15 years of experience in the field of alternative dispute resolution. Isn't it going to be an interesting show? She worked as an ombudsman, conflict resolution expert, mediator, and conflict coach. She has worked with numerous individuals as well as communities to resolve the underlying issues that produce the conflicts and misunderstanding. Perfect, just like that magical nugget story, right? About the tip. In order to help others become unstuck, as well as her own personal quest for healing, Ianna expanded her interests and pursued certification in several alternative healing modalities. So she also offers, as part of her own healing journey, breath work, Reiki, Pilates, I love Pilates, and also coaching on forgiveness. With that, I would love to bring on Ianna Epps. Hello, darling.
Hello, Alena. Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction.
Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. All right. So, okay. First, I always want to dig right in, but I would like us to explain a little bit. First of all, could we explain what an ombudsman is? Because that's the first time I've ever even heard that term.
Yeah. So an ombudsman is essentially another word for somebody that helps people manage and navigate through conflict. Right, so I just happen to do that within a workplace environment. So the people where I work can come to my office when they have any issue that is causing them a conflict in the workplace, and they need help in addressing it. So it can run the gamut of, I don't know how to address an issue that I have with a coworker or with my supervisor, or I just don't understand what a policy is, to, I feel like I'm being retaliated against. So I help people gain the confidence, actually, to address the conflict on their own. I really don't do anything but support people in developing tools to address their own conflicts. So I like to say that I help them develop that confidence to address it on their own, because most people are quite capable. They just need a little bit of support.
Interesting. No, they do. They do. And it's funny you said their own conflict, like it is part of them too. And it is.
It is. And, we want people to come to work every day enjoying what they do, not to be burdened by feeling, feeling the burden of a conflict.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Well, a conflict that goes on and on, especially in the workplace. Oh my gosh, that's heavy. In fact, you don't even want to go to work because you have to deal.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you wake up in the morning, the alarm clock goes off, and you just sit on the edge of your bed saying, I don't want to have to do this again. And I got to tell you, I love the example that you just gave of the piano teacher and the tip, because that is such a clear, it just so clearly describes what can happen when we don't let go of our conflicts, when we hold on to anger and we don't forgive. We allow anger to sit in the driver's seat for us.
Yes.
And when we do that, we miss so many opportunities. You just think, like that piano teacher lost out on an opportunity. You never know where one opportunity might lead to another, to another, to another. It just stifles us.
It is. I think, so 25 years this man holds on to this. 25 years, and it grows and it festers like a blister, and and I don't want to be graphic, but it's true, it's a bunch of pus in there that just increases and increases and increases. So then when he sees this man, and if you saw my friend, he's one of the gentlest, most beautiful people. He's just all from his heart, he's just a good person. So when this guy all of a sudden comes with all this, I don't want to say the term, I don't think I can say the term, but all that vinegar and pus inside, and says, you can just imagine what I was going to say. He directs it right at this person that is all about love. And he doesn't even see the love. And even when that person full of love looks at him and says, hey, you know what, that's not me, but it's no big deal. And offers him, he takes it and runs and never experiences what, if we change that scenario. And he said, and he actually looked at himself and thought, oh, wow, I've been so silly. Or, oh, wow, this is resolved. I can let this go and I can forgive him. And he could have then experienced a powerful relationship with someone who is filled with joy and love. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I'm very well aware of that. Yeah.
And he missed the whole opportunity.
Yeah.
How many times do we miss the opportunity for true gifts because we harbor that heavy, heavy chain?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's really, I want to say it's at no fault of our own. We just don't know sometimes you just don't know a way out.
Oh, you got to talk a little more about that. That's a good point.
Well, people get stuck in their victim status, and then it becomes hard to even imagine anything different. And I remember working with a colleague of mine, I want to say about 10 years ago, and one of the things that he said to me, and it has really stuck with me, he said, Ianna, he said, people fall in love with their conflict.
Ooh,
and,
ooh, that must burn.
Yeah. Right? So imagine here comes someone that's trying to tell you to leave this relationship that you have with your conflict, that now you've even wrapped up your own identity into it. So now you have established this identity as maybe an angry person or a victim.
Need to be justified.
Right.
And
now someone's asking you to break up that relationship? No, I don't think so.
It's true.
Now you're asking me to challenge my identity, right?
Wow. It does turn into your identity because you don't see yourself as this person full. The identity is not a person full of grace. Right. It's full of vindictiveness, judgment, wanting to even the score. That person doesn't deserve it. It's true. You're judge and jury. You become the judge and jury and the victim.
And the victim. But what you're really telling people is that you're hurting. Mm-hmm. And people, and again, no fault of anyone, it's very hard to support someone who's in that much pain, especially, you can tell them, okay, you need to forgive, but what does that mean when you're hurting?
What does that mean when you're hurting?
I don't want someone to tell me to forgive when I'm in pain and I'm angry. I want someone to hold my hand through that and, help me yell, help me scream, and help me cry. Help me change my story that I've so closely identified with and now has become a part of my identity.
And when we claim something as our identity, then all of a sudden it's known. You know what I mean? It's the known thing. I'm the victim. I was hurt this way. And it's known. It's solid ground. It becomes the stuck comfort zone. And what does that mean? That means when we step out of it, we're stepping out into the unknown. And the unknown is scary. It creates a void.
Right. Right. So we fear doing that. We fear stepping out into the unknown. So it's safer to stay where we're stuck, right? So,
right. It's easier.
Yeah. And then, God forbid we take up some habits that are helping us stay someplace that feels safe. And by habits, I mean things that are not necessarily good for us, but help us to provide an escape for what we're internally feeling. So, I don't know, people take up things like drinking.
Self-medicated.
Self-medication.
Yeah.
Anything to avoid the feeling.
Oh, that's so sad. Well, they also, you can tell. People don't know that you can tell when people are harboring that. The way they act, that calmness inside of them is gone. And it's replaced with this pus, and it's either causing you to act persecuted, or you're abrupt and you're harsh. You don't. It's this weird. It's just not where we're meant to be. It's as simple as that. Now, we've got a lot of people who have not forgiven in the world. I mean, just that's the way it is. I mean, we're still harboring things from prehistoric days. I mean, I was literally prehistoric days. So when we carry all this, how dare you kind of attitude, okay, so all of a sudden I have to get along. And we're facing that now. Look at society now, Ianna. I mean, you must be having a freaking field day watching from your window everything that's happening. All this hurt. It's all hurt out there. And people are striking out at other people. And they think they're so it's a judging, like a judge and jury kind of person. How can we talk a little bit about, yes, it's hard to deal with that one conflict, but how does forgiveness hurt us in every other aspect of our life? Or forgiveness when we don't forgive. Sorry, let me rephrase that. How, when we don't forgive, does it hurt us in every other aspect of our life?
That's a great question. And I mean, I personally am a believer that our lives are quite short.
Me too.
And that we're meant to live a life that is filled with peace and grace.
Yes.
And when we don't forgive, we are living without those two given rights. Life rights is what I like to call them. And what happens is that we become immune to living our own lives. And by that I mean we spend so much time worrying about external situations and what other people are doing that we don't spend time focusing on ourselves and our own happiness. And we can become physically ill, emotionally ill. We end up spending time ruminating, which is a horrible loop to be in.
Mm-hmm.
We spend our time, essentially just swimming in a sea of anger and pain. And we ruminate in judgment of ourselves, and we ruminate in judgment of others.
What a horrid place to be.
It's a horrid place to be.
It's a spinning. My mother has come down with dementia. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, me too.
Yeah.
But the thing is, she's always been high anxiety and high fear and depression. She's always had that, okay?
Right.
So now all of a sudden, she's in that quasi zone where she knows that she's forgetting. She knows that she's losing control of things. You know what I mean? She's in that, and it's a terrible place to be for anyone. Mm-hmm. However, I have watched... unfortunately, we all have seen so many people get things and live through, live on into the next life, meaning passing away. And it's interesting to see with all this stuff that she, because she's so used to living, and it is her identity to live in that worry, anxiety world, it's eating her up.
Yeah.
And she can't, and I keep saying, hey, Mom, let's try something different. Let's just try to paint today. She used to be an artist. Let's just try a puzzle. Why don't we start reading a book together? Why don't we try? And she will not have any of it. She has to stay, and this is really big, guys. She has to stay in that world, that dark place of that rumination and worry.
Yeah.
She will not allow herself, no matter what you offer, she won't allow herself to climb out. Isn't that interesting?
But it's all too common. That's definitely, an example of someone who has attached their identity with their experience. And, it's interesting. The woman that I took conflict, I became a coach. She gave me my coaching certification. Her name is Eileen Barker. And one of the things I really appreciated about her is that she refers to people who, she refers to something that she calls an emotional signature.
Okay.
And that is what shows up when we don't address our stuff.
I want to learn more about this myself.
Yeah. So that emotional signature is the story that we have carried throughout our lives, and we carry in our day-to-day interactions, and it drives how we navigate and how we show up in the world and in our relationships. And until we can reframe that story, and I don't know what it would be in your mother's case, but until we can reframe that story, we will show up in a way that causes us to be stuck. And so to your point about your mom, her wanting to stay in a place where she's ruminating suggests to me that she has not had an opportunity, and at no fault of her own or anyone's again, to tap into her emotional story, which is a story that we tell ourselves from when we're a child.
Yes.
And we continue to build on it and validate it throughout our lives, right? Nobody loves me, and then I'm not picked for the softball team, so that validates that nobody loves me, right?
Right. That's true.
So, we continue to build on that until it's all we know. And until we can change that emotional signature, which just for instance is nobody loves me, and then reintegrate a new story into our lives, we're going to be stuck. And no one deserves to be stuck.
It's true. No one deserves to be stuck. And it's so interesting that people choose that heaviness. Yeah. And then even feel like to identify it. So if we are, it's such a horrid feeling. I can't imagine waking up every day feeling that heaviness and allowing it. I would want to just shake it off. I would want to stretch my arms off and just say, no more. I don't want this anymore. And I could not stay there. But some people, they do. They find if you're doing it from childhood, which most of our stuff comes from.
Yes.
Comes from that 1 to 6-year-old or 7-year-old, or sometimes a little older. It comes from that. And we harbor that for so long. Every moment we are given, we form our world. And if we have that badge or that hurt, that's what's going to form our world. It guides every action, every feeling in our life.
Yes, it does.
So
it absolutely does.
I find it very interesting. So when a person, what is a good tool? My poor mother, thank God. One time she was going to listen to my show. I said, oh, no, you don't want to do that. Because I'm always using her as an example, and it's very bad. But she does offer a lot of opportunity for us all to grow.
She's a case study.
She is. Oh my God, yes, she is. Well, anyway, I have to say, so you have a person like my mother, say, and how do we? What would be good steps to get her to maybe just stick the big toe out of that comfort, that identity circle that she's in? What kind of tools could people start to begin right at home to start to tip their toe out of this and find, get free of that heaviness? Yeah.
Well, great question. I think, first of all, one important thing is for people to recognize that they don't have to feel that way. Right?
And how do they do that?
Right. Absolutely. And I will say what I loved about my coaching experience was that I learned how to do it, right? So people would tell me all the time, you need to forgive. And I was like, what they're not telling me is the process.
Right.
I was so frustrated. But, if you want to just start some things at home, not using a coach, it's really about recognizing, first of all, that I'm uncomfortable about something, right?
Right.
And sitting with that feeling and, really trying to get in touch with it. So by that I mean, where is it showing up in your body? Do you feel in your chest? Do you feel a cramp in your leg? maybe you feel butterflies in your stomach. Might be something like that.
Or
right?
maybe your shoulders, or even your knees.
Exactly. And recognize that, and just sit with that for a moment and recognize it and allow yourself to feel it. And then allow it to move its way through. Because what will be interesting when you start to feel it is that you'll observe that, okay, the butterfly, say for instance it's butterflies that you're recognizing. The butterflies feel worse. Now they feel a little bit better. And now they feel a little bit better and better. And now I don't feel them anymore. So what you've done in that moment is that you've allowed an emotion, something to show up, say, I'm here, process me, so I can help you see what else is there.
I like that.
And then once that happens, I encourage people to think about, when is the first time you ever remember feeling those butterflies in your stomach? And, right?
Yes,
and,
have them go back to that moment.
Go back to that moment. And for some people, they can go back to a specific time when they were 4 years old, and they were about to go on stage for a preschool holiday concert, right?
Right.
Performance, right?
Oh my gosh, scary.
Right. And right before they went on stage, they looked out in the audience and they didn't see their mom out there. And in that moment, they felt so alone and abandoned and frightened.
And there you go. There's the story that plagues them for the rest of their life.
Exactly. There's your story.
You're listening to Magical Moments, and I'm Alena Chapman, and we are talking about that forgiveness, and we're talking with Ianna Epps. Now, this next part, we're going to start talking about how that is playing out in our world now, and how when we wake up from this, how can we help others?
Thanks for listening. Your weekend continues with Magical Moments featuring Alena Chapman right now.
Welcome to Magical Moments, and I'm your host, Alena Chapman. And boy, are we bringing some heavy ease and flow into your life. And I am with Ianna Epps. And we're talking about forgiveness. And in the first half, we were talking about what does forgiveness do to you? And what does it do to your body? And what does it do to every moment of your life? And now I think what fascinates me the most is that it becomes our identity. I think of everything we talked about in that first, it does. We own it and we don't let go of it. And it defines who we are. We let some outside source, some event, define us, whether that's betrayal, anger, injustice. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And it's all false.
Yeah.
It's all false. And yet we feel so good doing it. We think, well, you know what? It's addicting. It's the polar opposite of love. It's a type of fear, and it's the polar opposite of love. And both are very powerful in different ways. When you're angry or you feel hurt or you feel it spins in you. It's agitation. It's very a powerful feeling,
Yes. I mean, I want to say it's highly charged when you're angry or
highly charged.
Highly charged. So yeah, you're. I guess I'm not a neuroscientist, but little that I do know is that you establish these neural pathways that say, oh, this is where all of our energy is supposed to go.
And you feel like you're doing a lot.
Yeah, you are.
Well, you are inside your body. And with what you're saying. But it's very interesting. And then the opposite of that, which is love and grace and peace, when you open to that, it's just as powerful. However, it's a whole different feeling.
Yeah.
And it's probably, it can be just as powerful. It's more, we say you have to look in, but really it's that reaches out more. the anger and that energy pulls you inside yourself into a bubble and then just spins. But the love is always an outward. It comes from inside and moves out into expression.
Indeed. Indeed. I love the way you describe this.
I think people need to, they're polar opposites, but they affect differently. And you always find it's more humbling. It's very interesting that people choose that feisty anger. So I want to talk a little bit about our world. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So in the field that you are in and our world right now, I mean, okay, I get on my Facebook, which I am getting more and more off my Facebook and my social media. But I get on it to see what if people have questions or whatever. And so I'm on there, but I scroll through sometimes and I cannot believe what's happening. Everyone is saying, well, I just can't talk to her. You cannot talk to those people. They just do not see reason. And then I see the other side saying, I cannot believe people are not seeing the truth here. And I'm going to unfriend anybody who doesn't vote the way I do. And I'm going to unfriend somebody who doesn't vote the way I do. And you see this thing happening where friends who have been friends for years are suddenly defriending themselves. You see this spewing of pus, basically. It is. It's just awful, yucky, the lowest side of our personality coming out all over the place. We're going to defriend. We're going to you can't be part of my party. That's what they're saying, you know? And it's so...
social media.
And there's nothing. There's no talking. And they say, well, they just won't listen. Well, that's because you're yelling. You know? Right. They just don't see reason. Well, that's because you're just stating what you think is. It's so interesting to see the harshness we're treating with each other.
Right.
And that's just on social media, but do you know I'm seeing it start to play out in society? That green light just barely turns green. It just turns green and they'll honk for you to go.
Sure.
The anger is starting to fester in other ways. So we've got a little while before the election. And we are already, we're raw. We're raw. We're in a raw state. We've had too much stuff, too many crises, too much alterations to our life, too many, really being forced to step outside our comfort zone. And some of us didn't like it very much. So we've got a lot of upheaval. And now all of a sudden we're venting into the political system and into our friends. Am I right in that judgment, sort of?
I would completely agree with you on that. And I feel like I love your description about us being raw. I completely agree. I feel like our nerves are exposed.
They are.
We're all just a moment away from being set off.
I feel the tension. You know, I was driving in today and I saw people in their cars. Everybody, I'm the one who was running late. We switched the time and I'm like, oh my gosh. I am so a creature of habit. I was just amazed on how much I'm a creature of habit because I try not to be, but boy, I am. And I'm like, oh my God, we're doing this in half an hour earlier and my body is not moving. But yet I had still established, in fact, I worked at it knowing this. Okay, set up the safeguards, let everybody know you're going to be a little late. And number 2, calm. Get focused. Pull yourself in. Take your deep breaths. Aim that breath towards the back, towards the abdomen. Increase your lungs. Just play with the breath. Get your mind on the breath. And then just focus and then go higher. And that's what I'm doing. But when I look over at the car next to me, everybody is going like a mile a minute.
Yeah.
You know, they're slamming down the coffee, talking, and they're all serious, and they look like they're telling somebody something very serious there. And you see people just in different states of tenseness, and you can actually feel it. So
Yeah.
when, I'd love to say, okay, what's your advice for the whole world? Maybe I will. What is your advice for the whole world?
Well, I just want to first of all say that your idea, I guess, or you're using that tool of tapping into the breath
Yes.
is a great way and a great resource to calm the nerves, right? Because we don't want to be in a situation where we're in that flight or response.
Oh, it's horrible. It's a horrible place.
It's horrible. It's not, and it's just not a good feeling, right?
It kills your shoulders. It tightens your abdomen. It's funny. I learned that from Spirit because and it told me, okay, focus breath in the back, because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you get so worked up. Here I am late. Oh my gosh, I'm late. Oh my gosh. And you can sing that rabbit song from what is it? Alice in Wonderland. I'm late. I do that sometimes. But then I breathe. And when I breathe, I put it first. I think, okay, breathe in, just fill the stomach. Then I say, okay, the lower abdomen way down there, open that up, because for me, that's what tightens. So I'll do that like 3 times. Then, because my mind will go back, it will, guys, because you love that chaos, that feeling of spinning.
Yeah.
So then you say, okay, wait, now I'm going to go into the back. I'm going to go right almost to my butt. I'm going to aim for there. And then I'm going to go a little higher in my rib cage. I'm going to open up in the back of my rib cage. And you just aim the breath in all different areas. And then all of a sudden, you can go back to just breathing and then feeling that space between the in and the out breath. And then the world is beautiful.
And isn't it amazing what you see when you're in the present moment?
Yes. That's when divinity's there.
See the chaos.
The chaos does not become real.
Right, absolutely.
It's all like all of a sudden you get this overwhelming feeling, I got this.
I got this, exactly.
You do.
It's a great way to, and that's exactly how it feels.
It is.
Yeah.
And everything calms and everything slows down and everything feels like it's all right. It's going to be. And then you look over at the person going so harried and you just kind of giggle and say, oh, honey, we need to do breath.
But one important thing that I think that you've kind of brought up is that in that moment, when you took that moment to do the breath work and to calm yourself, you stopped contributing to the chaos, because you too could have been at the red light or the green light honking.
Yes. Oh, yes.
When you did that breath work, you stopped, and you don't know what kind of an effect you stopping had on someone else.
That's so true.
And I like to say that when we do this forgiveness work, not only do we do it for ourselves, but we do it for others, because it's a domino effect.
Everything we do is a domino effect.
Absolutely. I mean, I liken it to, I don't know, if you're walking down the street one morning and you see someone and you happen to smile at them or they smile at you, it kind of makes you feel better.
It does. And you don't know what you've done for their day. You don't know what they're going through. And yet your smile just might have changed a whole belief system and you don't even know it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I will say, I think during these times, I think one thing that would be very helpful for people, if they can take a moment, is to stop reacting and take a moment and really learn, what is it that just triggered me?
Yes.
Is it that my friend has a different political view, or is it that my friend, when she described her political view, made me feel that I don't matter because her political view is so antithetical to how I show up in this world?
Okay, I like that, yeah.
Yeah, so is that what's really happening? Or because it's never really just the action.
It's not.
A million layers underneath it, right? So you got to start peeling back those layers of the onion and try to figure out, what is it that's triggering me? And then once you know that and you're able to kind of process that for yourself, more than likely you will go back onto Facebook if that's where you want to go on the next day. And you can scroll through all of your comments that are negative, and they won't even affect you the same way.
You know, it's true, they won't. You start to see through the yelling, if you can yell, but the writing in all bold print. You see through it. And you see where the person's coming from. You know, I guess we have to ask ourselves, do we really ever win anyone over in an argument?
Never.
And all we do is and you don't change that person's mind. I had to sit down and I really thought about that. You know, did I ever, in my way of being angry, you know, and stating my point and being so, extremely righteous, save the trees, save this, did I change anybody's mind? No. In fact, I sent them more into their spinning world of whatever they thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I remember having a conversation with someone when I was going through my own personal forgiveness work, and one of the things that they asked me was, what did I want? And I told them, my response was, I wanted justice. And I said, I wanted to be proven right. And she said to me, what does justice mean to you? And I thought about that for a moment, and I was like, well, it means somebody telling me I'm right and they're wrong.
That's so true.
It means them being accountable and getting punished for what they've done to me. And she said, that's so interesting. She goes, you know, justice is a human concept, not something in the universe.
Yes.
And I had such a pivotal moment at that time because I realized that I had fallen for a trick, essentially.
I know. I had that same thing. Yeah, I had that.
Trick that kept me it married to my anger.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, it's your identity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you did fine. And it becomes your identity then.
Mm-hmm.
Once you marry it, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, mine was, it's very similar. Someone said to me when I was in my anger and I wanted that judgment, you know, that vindication, they said, you know, it's important the way the universe sees it and God is that he loves everyone.
Right.
And loves the enemy just the same as you. No one is different. So what does it matter who's right and wrong? Right.
It's a human construct.
It is.
We've established to, I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't even know why, to be honest with you. At this juncture in my life, I don't care.
So maybe we've got someone out there who is hurting. And maybe you've got people out there who are hurting from history. You've got people who are just hurting from betrayal. You have people who are hurting. And they're sitting there thinking, yeah, but I was hurt. And they hurt me.
Yeah.
And so what do you say to them to start just to release that hurt a little? You know what I mean? To take that first step in that releasing of the hurt.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that, yeah, they were hurt, right?
You do. You have to acknowledge that you were hurt. Everyone does.
Exactly.
That's the starting point.
And acknowledge that they have, you do have a right to feel your pain. It's what you do with your pain.
It's so important. Exactly.
Right?
You have to feel the pain because if you don't, you don't release it. You shove it down inside you. And that's what causes disease.
Yeah. And I think what people absolutely it does. And I think what people struggle with is this notion that forgiveness means something that is simply not true. So, for instance, forgiveness means that the other person's act is okay. Forgiveness.
That's silly.
Right, that something bad didn't happen. Those things are not true. Forgiveness is about you showing yourself the love that someone else didn't give you.
That's right.
Right?
And
forgiveness.
All because you forgive. And if someone has betrayed you, You don't go back and get the same treatment. We're not saying you just go in as, let them slap the other face. No.
Right, because it's not forgetting.
It's not forgetting.
I think people get that confused.
But you learn a higher lesson, don't you? Don't you find it's not, well, I'll never be a friend with that kind of person again. It's not that basic lesson. When you forgive, all of a sudden you open up to a higher lesson. That's that kind of personality. We're not going to gel. It's okay, but it's not going to gel. And all of a sudden you see the both sides. You start to understand that person actually taught me an important lesson. It taught me what I am and what I'm not,
Right. That person can be your teacher.
They are your teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are your teacher, and they help you to evolve if you allow yourself to forgive and hear that higher lesson. And you cannot learn the higher lesson if you haven't forgiven. You cannot take a shortcut. It has to be in that progress and that step, that baby step.
And it's so worth the work. I mean, I know for myself, I resisted it for quite some time because I was afraid. And I was afraid of sitting with the feelings that might surface. I was afraid with the rage. I was afraid that I would fall off the cliff and never be able to come back, never be able to survive experiencing the feelings.
I've heard people say that before. It is because you're spinning. Yeah,
exactly.
You're spinning down this. I always see it as this cyclone, or this tube, and there's nothing to grab onto, and you're just going right down, and there's no coming back. It's awful.
But there is.
Of course, there is.
It's just not true.
So
it's another thing that keeps us stuck.
I want to bring in another facet. There are a lot of people out there who are so-called light workers or psychologists or people that are trying to do what you do, what I do, and in this world. And so when you're faced with all these anger out there, all these different angers, and some of them are spewed at you or whatever, what would you say? Because I always see some of them getting very indignant. What is the best way for us to show up and shine our light the very brightest?
One of the things that I learned as being like a facilitator, is that you are not, you're an observer, and you're actually watching everything happening from the balcony. So people are spewing their anger and hate, or their resistance, or misdirected fury and rage. Yeah, it's really, you are just watching it happen, and it's taking yourself outside of it, so you're not a direct recipient of it.
And I think when you do the breath work and you do the short mini meditations, you find that you get yourself centered in that calm. It's like James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, his book As a Man Thinketh, his 4th chapter in Serenity. Mm-hmm. Be that shade tree in the desert that everybody wants to come to. You are not one of the masses coming. You are that tree.
You are that tree, which is actually so interesting that you say that, because recently I've been practicing the art of grounding.
Yes.
Right, and that has been spectacular for me. I would encourage most people to try that, especially if you are, if you're doing this work. So if you're, a light healer, or a psychiatrist, or Alena yourself, the magical work that
Always
you
willing.
do. My goodness.
Yeah. Well, no, I ground myself every morning. How do you ground? Oh, today I was definitely grounding. But what about you? What did you learn? I always like to hear different techniques, and I'm sure everybody out there would like to know one.
I honestly make a point of going outside every day and putting my feet on the earth.
Oh, yes, yep.
So,
yep.
And whether that means, a patch of grass in the park, I live in the city,
mm-hmm.
Or if I, get to go away to the countryside, it's just a matter of committing to 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes a day, whatever I can give, to putting my feet on the earth.
That's nice. That's exactly. I put my feet on the earth, and I actually talk to the earth, and I say, and I send love from me into the earth, and then I ask the earth to just bring itself around me.
That's beautiful.
And that's my grounding.
I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna add that to my repertoire.
You may steal that. Of course you may steal that. Yep. So, it is true when we're light workers, it's hard. We're people. We're people first. And actually we're spirit first, but we think we're people first. And we tend to react also. It's so important for us to feel that confidence, to step back and say, wait, this is who I am. I am not that person who's going to react. And how is it that I can bring a better solution to this situation? And when you ask that, you have just put yourself into your soul.
Exactly.
Your higher self. Right there, that one question, opening up to that. I think we owe it all. I think this world, people say, well, how can people all be so unicorns and everything, But it's not. It's a world of kindness. It's a world of community. It's a world of caring. And it's a world of helping each other grow. And I don't know, guys. I don't think that's just unicorns. I think that is a really nice place to live.
I think it's our obligation, honestly, as human beings. I mean, that's me personally. I do agree it's a nice place to live.
What if that was the whole goal of this earth to begin with? We're not doing so well yet. Let's change it.
But we're working on it one step at a time.
So how do people find out more about you?
Well, I don't have any social media, but
I heard that. Good for you.
I know, but I'm happy to talk to anyone, whether it's just to even, explore a conversation about forgiveness coaching, to talk about conflict resolution, whatever it might be. People can always email me.
Yes.
And my email address, should I share that now?
Yes, definitely. That would be perfect.
It's my first name and then my middle and last name initial.
Okay.
So it's Ianna A-E, and that's A-Y-A, N as in Nancy, A-E, Epps at gmail.com.
And Epps is E-P-P-S.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And so that's how, and I'll tell you what, guys, if you get hold of us, we can always get that to you. It is interesting. I really think that forgiveness is important, but you really, even if you're taking the baby step and first learning how to just get some control over the chaos as everything is freaking spinning. And that's why at Soul Manifesto, where I am, I put out a free program and I did it because in this time, like I said, we're raw. We're raw. Then that means we shoot from the hip. We strike with whatever we've got. It's time for us to get our inner calm back. It's time to get the core just its own peace and feeling that solid, like that tree, that light. And when I do that, what I've offered basically is a 7-day reset to reclaim your inner calm. And that is at soulmanifesto.com. And if you're interested, you can go to soulmanifesto.com. It's right there. You can sign up and it's free. 7 days of videos. What I'm doing actually is I give you concepts, but also different types of meditations. I have one that is a fabulous little meditation for you to do when you're going into ask for a promotion, or you're going into that important meeting, or your kids are driving you totally insane. There's this wonderful little meditation for you to gain perspective again and calm. So anyway, as always, it's all about you. It's all about your ease and your flow and living this life to the very best you possibly can. And so I want to wish you the very best in this wonderful journey of forgiveness. And remember that spirit is love. And when we have more and more love in our life, guys, we're spirit. Namaste.
This has been Magical Moments with Alena, featuring Alena Chapman. If you missed an episode, download it now on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, CastBox, Deezer, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Learn more online at soulmanifesto.com.